garden, and welcome to whatever this video is going to be. I'm Avalon Roselin, indie author, and you're almost Milo Winter for the evening. I have tried many times to write a script about Milo Winter since this all pretty much started. And eventually I decided that there was no point because too many developments were happening too quickly, and I didn't want to make multiple videos about the Age of Scorpius or Milo Winter. I just decided to wait until it had mostly died down and seemed to have reached a conclusion, and that is what has happened. It appears that Milo is going to be taking a break from the world of Guardian and maybe doing some other writings, maybe learning a little bit more about writing as a craft, and so on and so forth. So I think it's finally time for me to make my Milo Winter Age of Scorpius World of Guardian video. And I'm going to approach it from what I hope is a slightly different angle. There are already so many videos on the booktube, bookish, booktok sphere about Age of Scorpius and the writing of it and how it is borderline unreadable to just not even being borderline unreadable, but nonsensical. There are videos about the marketing of the book, about the claims that were made about the book, about how people believed it was a scam, which I I do not agree on that front. I don't think that purchasing a book that ended up being very poorly written is a scam, especially if it was pretty much as advertised and you purchased it without actually reading a sample. That's just buying a bad book, and it happens. So there are already, as I've said, a ton of videos about that, and I am going to be linking some of my favorites and some of the channels that I think did a really good job of covering the situation as it was unfolding. I'm looking to do something slightly different with this video, and as you can probably tell from the amount of pauses, this is unscripted. I am just going off the cuff with my feelings and experiences and hoping that it lands the way I want it to, because I have tried so many times to write this script and it's just not flowing the way that I want it to. I think this is one of those times where I just need to be candid and talk about how this all made me feel. So, to start with, let's begin with the fact that I am not immune to internet drama, and while this was all happening, I was hooked. I was watching all of the videos. I think I still have a few queued up in my watch later. I love mess, and this was very much a hot mess. And like I said, I'm not going to go into the details, but for the broad summary, a new indie author who at the time was writing under the pen name of Audra Winter and has since come out as trans mask or as a trans man, I'm not sure which, is now referred to on the internet as Milo Winter, which is how I will be referring to him throughout the video. But if you were curious why the name on the book cover is different, that's why. Basically, Milo wrote a very not good book, and before it was published, it had gotten a lot of pre-orders. It went, I guess, viral on TikTok, and things just kind of escalated far beyond what Milo was able to deliver. So, first and foremost, to the people who pre-ordered the book and never got their copy, that really sucks. That is a very scummy and bad thing that Milo did. I really don't want to come off as if I am defending Milo in this video. There are some things that I don't think are as bad as people made out to be. Like the idea that it was all a scam. I don't believe that. But that also does not mean that Milo is purely innocent and did nothing wrong. I think there is room for a middle ground where a young and inexperienced author made some mistakes that were understandable and also made some choices that were bad. And I think that is one of them. Not getting people their pre-orders, continuing to have things behind paywalls, bad choices, not good decisions on Milo's part, but not indicative of a scam. So let's again, unscripted, bear with me. The book is bad. I've listened to the videos of people actually reading it. I know there's a PDF of it out there. I was sent a PDF of it, but I am choosing not to read it because I just don't want to engage. This doesn't seem like the kind of book I would have enjoyed even if it was written well. There's very little chance I would have ever picked it up in the first place. So I'm not interested in reading just how bad it is when there are many other books that I am reading that are way worse from from a content standpoint. And this isn't a book that is bad because like when I'm hearing about a book that is being panned on booktok and booktube and it's like it's such a horrible book, it's the worst book. Usually when I'm hearing that kind of stuff, it's because the book is, you know, overtly racist, sexist, transphobic, misogynistic, all of the isms. This book isn't that. It's just not good. So at the very least it's not, to my knowledge, racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic, etc. Ableist, you know, whatever. So there's that. It's just bad. It's just poorly written. Like I've seen people comparing it to things like My Immortal, where it's like the descriptions are so long but say nothing. The world building is mostly in the author's head, so a lot of it doesn't translate well into the page, and you know, things just kind of happen. You can clearly tell that this was a passion project of a young writer who maybe didn't kill some of the darlings that should have been killed. And this is where I start to look at the whole situation and go, "Oh no, that was almost me if if I had had a larger platform." So with that, I need to tell a story and I think get to the lesson that I want to take away from all of this and that I want to give to my viewers about all this, because I am an educator first and foremost, and the point of this channel is supposed to be giving advice and recommendations. So let me tell you about 2016 when Alice was published. The first edition was published for the first time, and some of the bad decisions that I made around that time. So, my understanding of what makes a successful book release and what makes a successful author was having those midnight, you know, premieres of books, basically. I came of age as a writer, a young person, when there were still Harry Potter books coming out, when Twilight was being released, and there were big events for those things. People would go to bookstores at midnight and dress up as characters. There would be sometimes food or entertainment. And in my mind, as a young person, a aspiring author who wanted more than anything to be successful, what I took away from some of that cultural osmosis was that if I wanted my book to be a success, I needed to have some kind of big event to announce it to the world. And that was not a good marketing decision. That is not how things work. Those events happen after an author or a series are already well known and already have the success to draw in big crowds of people. So I spent a good amount of money, over $1,000 in fact, putting together a release party for Alice at a very lovely independent little tea store that we frequented. And they were lovely people, and they really did try to do their best to help us with this event, and it was a nice time. But in terms of being a successful book launch, of drawing in people who were actually interested in purchasing and reading the book, not so much. And when I did it again a year later for Like Falling Stars, having not learned my lesson, it was even worse because, again, I spent a lot of money for an event where literally no one except for me and my very close friends were in attendance. There was one person who showed up because he didn't get the memo that the tea shop was closed that day. I don't even know if he was there to go to that tea shop or if he was just waiting for a bus. But there was one person that I did not personally drive to the event at this event. And I had spent, again, way too much money putting this together. Now, this is not as bad as going viral and having, quote, thousands of pre-orders and not fulfilling all of them. And then when they did get fulfilled, the ones that did, people realizing that the book was very bad. It could have been a lot worse. Certainly, the only thing I lost was a little bit of money and a little bit of pride. But it did make me feel a bit for Milo and the situation, and what I think is the pitfall here that I fell into, that Milo fell into, and that I'm sure other authors have and will fall into, past and future, is focusing on the aesthetics of success. Because that's what I was doing, and I definitely think that's what Milo was doing when this all started as well, was trying to emulate the aesthetic, the visual, the what do I believe success looks like, and then copying that without really having put in the research, the time, the work to understand why those things are markers of success and how to achieve them organically. So that was me, 10 years ago. Um, Nowadays, a lot of indie authors or new authors, people, they hit booktok and they go viral and they sell thousands of books and they get series, and they are talked about, they are discussed for better or worse, not always for good in the case of people like Milo Winter. And I would also say people like Rebecca Yarros. There are so many people who really liked Fourth Wing and then continued reading the series, after Fourth Wing blew up and it got so big, and Rebecca Yarros gets this series deal, and then the later books don't hold up. Um, my personal opinion of Fourth Wing was that it was, okay, it was fine. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. It was just kind of a book that existed, but when you're Milo Winter and you're seeing this book blow up, and you're seeing, what was it, Light Lark, and all these other books that are just, they're going viral, everyone's talking about them, there's art and all this stuff. I think that Milo fell into not the exact same trap that I fell into, obviously, but a similar trap. This is what success as an indie author looks like on social media right now, and I think that Milo focused on that more than on actually making sure that the product was good, which is kind of exactly what I did in a way. Did I need to spend all that money on these launch parties that, again, were very poorly attended and generated very few sales, very little conversation around the book, very little word of mouth? No, I did not need to do that. I could have spent that money better on things like additional rounds of editing or sending copies to ARC readers, things that would actually lead to more buzz for the book in a way that actually mattered versus just what I thought success would look like for an author. And so I really think that's what I'm trying to get to here, and what I hope that people can take away from this whole situation and from this video and my little rambling thoughts on this and my embarrassing similar-ish anecdote is to just focus on writing a good book. I know that a lot of people, myself included, while this whole thing was going down, a common comment was Milo Winter is doing everything but writing this book. And yeah, I think Milo still has a lot to learn, and I hope that he does learn it. I hope that he is able to take some lessons and come back. And I do think this was a little bit blown out of proportion, but at the same time, I am not immune. I was definitely sat and watching it all happen in real time, so I can't judge too harshly on that front. But yeah, I it really just comes down to focus on the book, focus on the product, because at the end of the day, the actually successful authors, the ones who are able to make at least somewhat decent money at what they do, who are able to get their name out there and share their works and build up that fan base, they aren't concerned with things like going viral on TikTok or having fancy parties to celebrate the release of their books. They are just writing the book. And that is what occupies their time. That is what they put their energy into. They are doing the work and getting the books written and published. It really is advice that can seem detrimental because people think that they have to publish a lot of books very quickly, and that's not what is meant by this. But your books sell each other. The more you write, the more published works you have to your name, the more that people recognize that you are someone who has been around and who is consistently putting out books. That's what builds an audience. That's what builds that success. You have to do the work. You can't just go viral on TikTok and get thousands of pre-orders or have a big party and expect that to lead into a long career. The only way to do it is to do the work. And I think I've learned that by now, and maybe Milo has learned it. And hopefully some of you watching this video have now learned it without having to go through the embarrassing mistakes that some of us have gone through. So thank you for listening to this little ramble, and please leave a comment below to let me know, what does success mean to you? If you're an author, an artist, what would tell you I have made it? What would be your moment of satisfaction in knowing that you have reached what you wanted to reach with your career? And keep growing until next time, Rose Garden.